This is the Mandalorians, the Explosion Network's up show, where we break down each and every episode of The Mandalorian, Disney Plus's original Star Wars series, of course. We're discussing, reviewing, talking about all things. It's great. You're welcome to be here. Hello, welcome. My name's Tim Black. Joining me, as always, Ashley Holby.
Hey, John.
Somber, sad,
very sad
introduction to this episode. So judging by Ash's tone, in case you didn't know, this was chapter 14. The Tragedy was this week's episode. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Jon Favreau. So there's the Rodriguez episode out of the bag. That's what I said last week, right? Didn't I say it was?
No, you said maybe he'll do the finale.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, it would have made sense either way, I suppose. But
I mean, he still could. I don't know if we've got it confirmed.
Highly doubt he did too, surely. That'd be weird.
But I don't know. We only, obviously, all the directors who have directed, we knew.
Yeah.
So we don't know who's doubling up.
Might be Favreau this time.
Could be.
That makes sense, considering he didn't do any directing the first time.
First season, yeah.
Synopsis for this episode was simply the Mandalorian and Child travel to an ancient site, which made me think that all these synopsises were written in such secrecy they couldn't be bothered like updating the synopsis now that we actually have Grogu. Like, you know, it doesn't say the Mandalorian and Grogu. It's like, no, the Child. Okay. Fair enough. What were your overall thoughts on this week's episode?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Obviously, another long-running thing. Sub-story has finally reached its fruition, so we can finally cast out of the bag. Temuera Morrison playing Boba Fett.
Which
it was him over Ming-Na's character's body.
Yeah. Which it feels weird to have that. Like, I don't know if you felt the same, but it didn't feel like a big like reveal because it just kind of been teased, and we had a lot of episodes in between that first episode where we're like 99% sure that's Boba Fett, like, you know, but just waiting so long and then to finally have it confirmed.
Well, it was pretty for me. It was pretty much confirmed as soon as they had the previously on at the start, and it's that shot of him over Fennec's body back on Tatooine from episode 5, chapter 5.
Yeah. For the people who forgot, it's like here. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, so
it's like, oh, okay, he's going to be in this episode.
You know what I thought that? I'm like, oh, don't tell me we're stopping by fucking Tatooine again. Please don't let that be what happened. Good
episode. Good fight sequence. Obviously, the fight between their motley crew and all the stormtroopers, pretty solid. I thought pretty good. Yeah, well shot. We'll get into it, but it was pretty brutal.
Very.
So yeah, and looks like his band of friends is going to grow bigger.
Yeah. Well, I've not been saying this the entire time. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to the end of the season where he has to like collect everyone. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like Doctor Who season 5, whenever it was, and the Doctor like runs around and gets all his companions to go fucking fight the Daleks or whatever it is. Like
to rescue Amy Pond's baby.
Yes, that's another time. But there's 2 times when he does it to show. But it's similar sort of thing where it's like you spend all season meeting these people, and then like in the penultimate episode, it's just like, okay, well, I got to go get all these random people together. Come help me. Anyway, I thought this was a solid episode. We'll get into the Boba Fett stuff more deeply in a second, of course. He kicked ass, but obviously I felt like, especially the dialogue, it was written in a way, I guess, by Favreau, who is an admitted Boba Fett super fan. Like, he's one of those, like he's of the age where obviously he actually watched the movies in the cinema, unlike us and Boba Fett.
He thought, man, that guy standing in the background, he's the coolest.
He's the coolest guy ever. So just the way the lines and the delivery, it was all just written in a way that it feels like it's supposed to. I guess if you're a Boba Fett fan, like, you'd feel more like, oh man, this is awesome. But for people, I guess like me, who are like Boba Fett, whatever, I'm just like, okay. Like, he kicks ass by the end, and I was like, yeah, fucking go for it. But
it kind of fits the character, so.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me in this episode was actually Rodriguez's style, like melding with this show. I was Googling this as soon as the episode finished, and I could see a couple reports say that like this is true, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But did this not all seem like it was actually filmed in a on-set location?
Yes.
Yes, like compared to the rest
so.
of the show. More so. Like everything in this episode felt very real. Almost.
Well,
I don't
most of it, yeah. I'd say most of it. Obviously, the location, they probably scouted a location. They're going, the entire episode's going to be shot in this one location.
Yeah.
We'll just go there. It's easier than doing all they had to do was like post the ships and stuff in. So because it was mostly like very practical.
Yeah, but is that Rodriguez
it would make sense that
choosing
it could shot
because of the way he likes to make movies? Like he's a big special effects guy, but he's also a very practical guy. You know, like he meets somewhere in the middle, which is always been an interesting thing about Rodriguez. You know, but I don't mean this as a put down, but it almost had like a fan film quality to it, especially those couple shots of just stormtroopers running along, like at the start when they're exiting the ship, or you just see them like lining up to shoot. Like it just had that almost someone shooting this on a $1,000 4K handycam that you could pick up at your local store. Like it looked good, but it also just looked like someone in a costume. Like it just had that very real world look to it, if you know what I mean. Like there was no great cinematic choice chosen with the overall color flavor of everything. It was just all very natural, just raw. Yeah, no, that's one thing that stood out to me from this episode, especially because the rest of the show is like it looks good, but obviously you can tell a lot of it is shot on like the LCD screens and sound stages or whatever else. Like this episode just stood out a lot for that. I did enjoy it though. It just stood out. All right, so let's get into the episode and break down what's happened. So obviously the episode starts with this. The cold open scene was Mando and Grogu in the ship. I wrote down in my notes, kind of training to a degree, I guess. I don't know.
Kind of.
Like he's.
I think everybody kind of loves Grogu being called by name and him reacting to.
Just because he goes, what? Or whatever that sound is. You know, like his ears prick up like they remind me of Gizmo.
Yeah.
Gremlins.
You know, it's like when you call your dog's name.
Yeah.
And they look up at you.
Yeah, I guess. Or your baby's name.
I guess, yeah.
People who have a child. So we have the whole scene where he's playing with the ball. It's funny because after last week's episode with the ball off the handbrake or whatever the hell it is, the gear knob, it was such like a small detail last season, and then the fact that got carried over to last week's episode, I was like, at the time, I just thought, oh, maybe this is Filoni just picking up something that that was Deborah Chow's episode was the one where it was first introduced, and like maybe it was just him picking up and going, oh, that's a neat feature. I'll chuck that back in, and then the fact it's brought through to this, and now by the end of this episode, this bowl actually has such a like sort of symbolic meaning,
connection,
somewhat between the Mando and Grogu's relationship. Like it's gets to represent something by the end of the episode, which is.
You know what it reminded me of? Remember at the end of last season, Mando like gave him a necklace or something?
Yeah, what happened to that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. What happened to that?
I guess he still has it on, right?
Is it underneath his clothes?
He must
maybe.
Be.
Maybe it'll help him to escape.
Maybe. I highly doubt they'd forget something like that. That'd be quite weird if they just randomly, completely forgot to bring that back up. But yeah, he did give him that thing. So then they arrive on Tython. I think that's how we're saying it. And they don't mess around. Straight away, they're like flying overhead.
Oh yeah, this massive planet. There's the temple.
Yeah, they find the temple straight away. There's no like search for it, so fair enough. I don't really question too much here. Mando says he has to take him down, and he can't land on top of the magic rock because there's no space. So he has to. They land off to the side and jetpack up there. Really, he couldn't land there because it wouldn't have worked for the rest of the script. If he landed right next to it, it would have made it too easy for him to get away. So Mando then puts Grogu on the rock, and all of this did remind me of like a Jedi temple and stuff I've seen in like Rebels and Clone Wars and and stuff like that, except for it's just not enclosed anymore. And I guess it is a destroyed or like a rundown temple, but
it's meant to be like the first Jedi temple is the thing.
Is it? I think that's right.
Yeah, or like a very early.
Luke's is the first Jedi temple on Porg Island.
Is it though?
So he said.
Well, maybe this is the first one they found. The oldest one they found.
Maybe.
The oldest known one.
Maybe. What about Jeddah? No, don't count. Okay. Yeah, so he puts it down on the thing, and he's. I like how Mando's trying to work out what to do. He's like looking around for a lever or something to activate it, which is quite funny. And then overhead straight away, he hears a ship. Turns around, Slave 1's flying overhead. So straight away, I'm like, okay. So as soon as I saw Slave 1, I'm like, okay, so it's Boba Fett. Now, I went from 99 to 100% as soon as I saw the ship, which obviously that's not going to work for everyone if they don't recognize the ship, but...
This raises a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One, has this ship just been parked somewhere the last however many years? The last decade?
Parking tickets behind the bloody... barrage or whatever before fucking what's his face was taken out.
Yeah. And I mean, if he's had this ship this entire time, why don't you just use it to get his armor back? Well, before. Yeah, this is my main. Put a pin in that because that's one. We'll dive into that in a second with Boba Fett. So Slave 1 flies overhead. Mando then heads over to get Grogu to take him away because he's like, oh no, danger. Meanwhile, Grogu's, I guess, triggered the Force or like whatever. He's like in a full on trance now. Like he's cross-legged, doing the whole like yoga pose, fingers out, and what I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the typical. Did you say Yoda or yoga?
Both, though. Sure, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at this stage. Like surely it's both.
No.
And he gets this whole...
He went full Avatar that last Airbender.
Yeah.
That's a reference you went.
Yeah, I'm saying Avatar. I'm finished.
Okay, you've seen it.
I've seen it all, but I'm saying it. Come on.
Yeah.
So then he heads on down to find out who's coming out of the ship, or Mando heads in to find out who's coming out of the ship, and it's Fennec and Boba Fett. So Fennec has aim on Grogu. Boba Fett's like, hey, give me back my armor. Mando's like, no, you're not Mandalorian, so you can't get the armor.
So if you don't remember, Fennec was in that episode on Tatooine. The guy, I can't remember, it was Bobby Cannavale's
son.
Bobby Cannavale's son, who kills her in cold blood because it turns out the Mandalorian is worth more money. And he's just left there for dead. Yeah.
And then at the end of the episode, got that teaser, someone walking up
of somebody,
which at the time
turns out
everyone was like, is it Boba Fett? And guess what,
is it Boba Fett?
It was true. It was true.
And it turns out she's got robot insides now.
It's Star Wars. You don't really need it. Don't think too sci-fi, like whatever. So as for Boba Fett, right, so let's just dive in now to everything, I guess. So yeah, my biggest hang up, my biggest confusion was he's been tracking Mando since he left with the armor. He's taken this chance now to interrupt and talk to him. But also, like, why could he not get the armor off Cobb Vanth? Why did...
I mean, the obvious answer is he never saw him with the armor.
The dude is literally the sheriff of a town, just roaming around.
A tiny town in the middle of the desert.
The dude has been roaming around, presumably for at least a year or so now, right? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Unless you're going to say... Like, the only way this makes sense is if he was literally spat out of the Sarlacc pit, like, 6 months prior to that. I think, you know what I mean? But if he's been wandering around Tatooine for years... Come on.
I don't know. I think we'll probably find out next episode.
Will we? Is that important? Like, will they actually bother answering these questions?
So where have you been this entire time? How'd you lose that armor?
Yeah,
it's so important to you.
So I'm gonna tell you, like, so
because the Mando is well known for his small talk.
Yeah,
so.
well, he's getting better.
No, because that's why they're bringing in that other character at the end of the episode. So
his name I forgot to look up, by the way, but what's his face's character?
Bill Burr's character.
Yeah. Who's
Mayfield.
There you go. The other thing that happens later in this episode that's super important about Boba Fett is they actually canonize him being a proper Mandalorian, which is a detail that's going to go over a lot of people's heads, but for the hardcore, or whatever you want to call it, the people who care, especially because if you're someone who's been tracking like the Legends days, and even then George Lucas was apparently against the idea of Boba Fett being an actual Mandalorian, and that's why in the Clone Wars,
I mean, technically he's not a born Mandalorian.
No, but this show is going about explaining what is and isn't Mandalorian differently. So in the Clone Wars animated series, I think it was like the president or whatever, someone says something about Jango Fett not actually being a Mandalorian. Like they have a line in that show that's like, Jango Fett, no, he wasn't Mandalorian. His son Boba Fett, not one of us. Like they go out of their way in that show to say not true. So that was the only canon like thing said about Boba and Jango. Now what they do in this episode later when Boba brings up his ID card license, I don't know. Like
it's so weird.
His driver's license. I don't know what it was. But he's like, hey, look, this has got my name in it. Look, it's got my father's name in it, Jango Fett. My Zana's been in family. And our Mando says, your father was a foundling. So by saying that Jango Fett was a foundling, under this show's rules, the fact that our Mando, Din Djarin, is a foundling and he's considered a proper Mandalorian because he's like an adopted Mandalorian, I guess is basically what foundlings are. Yeah. So that's what Jango is. That's what they've now said. Jango Fett was adopted.
So Boba Fett is a second generation Mandalorian immigrant.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. Basically, yeah. I kind of like it, to be honest. Like, because as someone who, I don't know, if you watch, listen to this show, obviously this whole Boba Fett stuff, I'm just very, like, it's not like I dislike it. I'm just very neutral on all, like, it doesn't excite me like the Ahsoka stuff does, obviously, because I'm not going to pretend to be excited about something Star Wars, even if a lot of people are, if I'm not, you know, like, I'm very neutral on Boba Fett stuff. He never did anything for me as a character. I enjoyed Boba Fett more in the Clone Wars animated series, actually, because you got to see how that kid handled, and actually they did a whole storyline where he attempted to assassinate fucking Mace Windu, and then you see how he falls in with for revenge, obviously, and you see how he falls in with
of course,
he killed his father, makes sense, and you see how he falls in with the underworld and stuff. So he was a lot more interesting in that. But Boba Fett in the original movie, don't care. Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy, he was kind of terrible fighter. He gets his head cut off like a loser. So I mean, not very impressive, but to put it bluntly, I mean, it's true. Like he does this whole.
I mean, anybody who gets their head cut off is kind of a loser. So
true.
You know?
But yeah,
lose because you lost your head.
Yeah, you lose your head literally. I like how they're kind of rewriting the what is and what isn't a Mandalorian, and it makes sense. Like in a world where, because it's always weird, I guess people struggle when you talk about like sci-fi stuff when there's like different planets, and because we only live on one planet and we only ever talk about like different countries, if like you kind of have to wrap your head around like you kind of have to start comparing other planets as if they're I guess different countries in our own planet to a degree, so it's or different sort of weird stuff like that. So like this show rewriting it and saying like, well, foundlings are basically adopted Mandalorians, and that makes them official Mandalorians. And look, long story short, if our Mando, Din Djarin, is happy with Boba Fett being a Mandalorian, we know how strict his rules have been this whole season. So if he's saying it's okay, then it's okay. What do you make of it all, though? Did it work for you? The whole like, oh, he was a foundling, so that means I'm a Mando, and
yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, maybe he just believes he's a Mandalorian, and that's what his father told him. You know.
No.
There's all sorts of possibilities.
There is, but
you think you can't hack that coding thing, ID tag?
I don't think it's. I think it's literally. I think this is Jon Favreau not having probably watched all of the Clone Wars, and then him like when they start talking about the show, and then Dave Filoni being like, well, you know, like Boba Fett's not a real Mando, right? And then Jon Favreau being like, what? Why? And then I think after this seems like fix that. This seems like a lot of back and forth, and then Jon Favreau being like, well, how can I fix that? and that's how it does actually just seem like that's, I know it's fine. Like whatever. Cool. What was I up to? Mando. Yeah, sorry. So
they meet up.
Yeah, they meet up.
They have
a chat. Empire shows up. Right. Empire shows up. And then you get this massive action sequence. A big chunk of the episode is this action sequence, and I you know, as usual, we're recording this right after watching, so don't get to see all the internet reaction until after. But I actually think this action scene is going to be very hit or miss for some people, simply because of the way it was filmed. It seems to have a lot of like handheld camera shots and just Robert Rodriguez style shooting in Plotty. And I also think the stuff I was talking about before with it feeling just very raw, real, fan filmy, or whatever you want to call it, which worked for me. I enjoyed it. I think there's going to be some people who their brain just doesn't like what they're watching, and they're probably not going to like this. But I thought this was a kick-ass action sequence. I love the way it was filmed. It just felt real to me. I kind of liked it. Very great special effects you see, like just the fact where Fennec is running across those rocks and just all the like sparks flying off it, and like the details there. It just like all looked real. And often in sci-fi stuff and Star Wars, you're seeing stuff like that. Like you're seeing like laser beam guns shoot at like other things that aren't tangible to us, like they're other like fake starcrafts, or you know, like laser swords or something. But there's something about this planet, the setting. It just seemed like it could be set in fucking Arizona or somewhere, you know, like out in the desert, and they're just shooting these guns. I really enjoyed the scene, and Fennec got to really. I'm glad she got to kick so much ass in this episode, because with every other strong female character that seems to be introduced falling to the dark side as a real life actor, as far as I'm aware, like what's her face is still in the good side, right? What's her name? I can't remember her name. What's the actress's name who plays Fennec?
Ming-Na.
Yeah, she's good, right?
She's fine.
She hasn't said anything racist or transphobic, so we're good.
Not currently.
Okay, good. No, it was good to see her get to kick so much ass. There was that one moment I love where she jumps off the rock, and then like as she's jumping, like fires off, pew, pew, and then like lands and pew pew,
and then does like a back roll
and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it was fucking kick ass. I'm all about it. Give her a fucking spin off. Give her the spin off series. Oh man. There's another backdoor pilot, Boba Fett and Fennec series. There you go.
Yeah, maybe.
Another backdoor pilot. Got it. Didn't even know you was watching it. But
the funny thing I read somebody said that the Mandalorian is actually just a supporting character inside the Star Wars universe, and just continually pops into different mainline characters.
Yeah,
by accident.
He's a lot like Mad Max in the Mad Max movies, because often the plot of those movies, in particular Fury Road, people are like, oh, Mad Max. It's not really about him. The main character's Furiosa. Yeah,
like, he's just there.
Like, he's just a dude, right? Like, yeah. So
he's just the connective tissue.
Connective tissue, yeah. So in a lot of ways, it is kind of like that. Yeah. Did you like the action scene though? Overall?
Yeah, it was really good. I think I'm just gonna say it. This is the coolest Boba Fett has ever looked.
Yep. When he got that armor, when he throws down that fucking thermal grenade or whatever, and then he like comes down, and they really, like, I feel like that what works so well about when he lands is for people who already love Boba Fett, they're going to be like just melting and enjoying it, and I'm happy for them. But for someone like me who not big Boba Fett fan, when he started kicking ass, even I was like, oh, fucking hell.
I mean, but even before that, when he had his giant hammer stick thing, it was like crushing Stormtrooper helmets, which I don't think I've ever seen, like in a Star Wars thing before.
Let me bring up something. We have seen it before, and it was done by the armorer. The armorer is his mum.
I don't know. That's true, but You know, he was leaving a couple of those guys broken on the ground.
Yeah, they had a better shot of their broken helmets.
With bits of pieces, the arms and limbs in places they're not supposed to be bent.
When she did it last season, right, you saw a couple like smacks of helmets or whatever, and she obviously smashed them, but they never had a shot like in this episode where you clearly saw someone like laying on the ground with their just destroyed.
The mask impaled.
Yeah, into their own face, so... Yeah, quite brutal without all the blood, obviously. So that was
they're blending on the inside of the costume.
Yes, that's true. It was kick-ass, and then the great finish to the scene where he aims the rocket launcher and takes out both ships, and then when Mando's like, "Nice shot," I was aiming for the other one. Like that was good. That was good.
That was a good line. Yeah,
I did enjoy that one.
I do like Boba Fett's like design. In this, like his facial without the armor, obviously he's been
the scars and stuff. Yeah,
so it tracks that he could have been partially digested for a period.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I just hope they never actually try and explain it because it's one of those things where it's better to just not to a degree.
It's like, oh, he escaped. Okay,
yeah, like if they're gonna explain it, I would actually prefer them to just do a fucking comic or something where they could spend enough time to have it make sense. Whereas if they ever try and explain it in this and they do it like a quick like...
Not in a Mandalorian.
Yeah, they're like a quick 1 minute scene where he's like, oh, this, but it's like, and then you'll just be left with more questions. So I'm like, if they're going to do it, just do a spin-off comic or like a 3-issue miniseries or something.
Do a one-off TV movie.
Yeah, I know. People would probably pay to watch that at the fucking cinema, I swear. There's Boba Fett super fans out there.
They won't be able to.
Who was going to do that movie once upon a time? What's his face? The director of Chronicles.
Oh, James Mangold?
Was it Mangold? Oh, was it? Yeah, actually it was, wasn't it? Yeah. It's interesting now to see that he's come back if we'll ever... I mean, we'll probably never hear, but it's hard not to wonder, like, what was that supposed to be about? Like, how does that line up to what's happening now? You know, like you just can't help but wonder. So the action scene finishes... and then the ship up above, the Empire ship, which
the Empire cruiser.
I don't remember what fucking class it is. I saw someone figure it out the other week, I think, but guess what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, it destroys the Razor Crest, so rip to the Razor Crest. That's a bit disappointing. Which also, the Razor Crest went through hell this season. It literally got nearly destroyed, then rebuilt horribly. Then Mando took it back to Tatooine to get fixed up properly. Oh, no, not to Tatooine, to fucking Cara Dune's planet, to get fixed up properly, and now it's just got absolutely blown to shit. So Razor Crest went through hell and back this season. So, pour one out. Because I don't see that coming back. I mean, it literally can't, rebuild the exact same ship. You can't do that. It has to be a different ship. You'll have a different ship. New merchandise. Did you buy the Razor Crest? Get ready to buy the Razor
Crest 2.
Yeah,
the Razor Crest.
The Razor Crest with a red paint job.
Rest in peace, Razor Crest.
Maybe
he needs to get a bigger ship next season because he's going to have more crew.
Maybe. I don't know. Ship gets blown up and then he's like, oh shit, better go try and get the child. Heads back to get Grogu. And then we see a shot of what's his face? Gideon on a ship who says the line, confirms, he says, have the Dark Troopers been activated or sent in or whatever. So yeah, they are officially Dark Troopers, that's what they are. And they get sent down to the surface of the planet. Mando and Fennec race to get Grogu, but the Dark Troopers manage to get to him first. Sad scene.
I'm really glad that we got to see this Iron Man Mandalorian crossover.
They did look sort of like
the Hammerbots or something.
Yeah. But also, I think they're going to be a lot cooler when we finally see them fight. Because all we saw them do this episode is literally just fly down and take off.
Fly.
We haven't seen them actually do any combat.
Next week, they're going to fire the repulsor beams.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be surprised at this stage. So, yeah. In the sad scene, they take off to the sky with Grogu, Mando zooming in and seeing little Grogu passed out in the arms of robots. It's all very sad. Boba Fett chases.
Not as Did you see the concept art at the end of him being carried away?
No, I think I was finishing up my notes.
No, apparently the child was like crying in the concept art. Yeah, like screaming, like a little toddler would be.
That's even worse.
But yeah, I know. So they saved us.
Probably saved us with what we actually got. Yeah, Boba Fett comes in chasing after him. He's going to shoot them out of the sky, and then Mando says no, tell him off, and Fennec calls off. Boba chases them up into the sky, up to the ship, and he's like, "Oh, they're back. The Empire's back. Oh no!" To which Mando shouldn't be really shocked because he literally saw Gideon and a bunch of he's been being chased after the stormtroopers this whole time. So then, back on the planet Cerberus, Mando searches through the rubble of his ship. Grogu's bowl thing that he loved to play with survived the blast, which makes me go, okay, so was that made out of Beskar, or is that what we're saying? Like, are we saying that little orb thing's made out of Beskar, or are we just assuming it just survived miraculously?
Yeah, mate, I guess so.
Like, surely that's...
No, it's probably a miraculous thing. Yeah.
So then...
I think you would have noticed if it was Beskar.
Maybe it is, like, and he's just... Maybe he knows it is Beskar. This belongs
with the Mandalorians.
Yeah, maybe he knows it's Beskar, and like, he's just keeps it there.
Maybe that's why he was searching through for it. It's like...
Yeah, maybe that's why
there's only two things that would have survived this ship being blown up.
The spear and the little bowl thing.
Bowl, yeah.
I mean, it could be a little keepsake. He got made for his ship, like a little Beskar.
Just some like extra Beskar that got left over.
It's like you make a gear stick knob.
I know this is really valuable and stuff, but could you just like make it a little tiny ornament for me to put on my gear stick?
Yeah, could be. So the other thing he finds is the Beskar spear, obviously. Boba Fett then explains that his debt is not paid because they didn't really agree, but whatever. His debt isn't paid until he returns the child to Mando. So they all head off together, Fennec, Boba Fett, our Mando, in Slave One. They head off. And they go to whatever planet it is. I can't be bothered looking up. It's not important. But they stick to Cara Dune, who... After that big like teaser thing last time we saw her with like the sheriff badge and whatever, she's now taken up that job. So she's now officially
just part of the.
She's now part of. She's like sheriff.
Part of the system.
Part of the system that she didn't want to be part of. But anyway, and Mando asks her to track down the person's name we said before, but Bill
to find Miggs Mayfield.
Miggs Mayfield, is that really his character? Jesus.
Yeah.
So Bill Burr's character, who. Mando needs to break out of prison because apparently he is the only one who could track down Gideon. And I can't remember. It's obviously I haven't rewatched that episode, but do you remember anything about his character as to why he would be the only person able to track down Gideon? Like, I don't recall there being anything like specific.
No, he was just a formal Imperial sharpshooter.
Yeah.
So like. I'm just looking at this Wikipedia page, see if there's anything.
No, it's just Jon Favreau being friends with Bill Burr and wanting him back in the show is what it is.
Well, he was in the episode directed by Rick Fugum.
You got it. It's fine.
Rick. Yep. Who is directing next week's episode as well. So
makes sense, I guess.
So this could next week's episode could kind of be a sequel to that episode.
The Prison Break episode.
Yeah.
So for this time, he's breaking
out
somebody
else out.
The guy who hired him. Well, he was doing the job too.
The guy who screwed him over last time.
You know, it's going to be hilarious, actually. Not to get too ahead of myself, but next week, if he breaks out him, and then one of the people who's chasing after him is what's her face's character who we've seen twice throughout the season now. That has to be an easy joke that they can just.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, oh.
He broke out another ship.
One. Yeah. That would be quite funny. Yeah, so that's where we leave Mando. So obviously Mando. Boba Fett's going to be next week's episode, presumably, because you're going to have Boba Fett and Fennec and our Mando teaming up to break out, to do a prison break, which is going to be quite interesting. So, the last scene of the episode, though, is on Gideon's ship, and Gideon walks into the room where they're holding Grogu, and Grogu is force choking out two stormtroopers.
Just toss
them around, and then he ends up making them whack into each other, and then wears himself out doing all this. But although this is the most force power stuff we've seen him do
Since last season's finale.
What? Yeah. Even then, this seems like more than usual. Like 2 people at once? I know that's like a lot.
Yeah.
Gideon gets down and talks to him though, and is like, hey, you wore yourself out. Good job, you idiot. Have you ever seen one of these before? Pulls out his dark saber, waves it around. Oh, look, I've got one of these. Do you have one? Fucking loser. And then he's like, oh, lock him up. Put some little handcuffs on him. Real sad scene, really. Just seeing Grogu obviously fighting to like find the energy to be able to get out of there, or fight back or whatever, but he just can't find the energy after he completely wore himself out. So then Gideon knocks him out, or tells the trooper to knock him out.
Set his phase as a stun.
He certainly did. Would have been awkward if he hadn't. Gideon probably would not have been very happy if that...
Star Wars reference.
Yeah. Star Wars references. It's fine. We've had Doctor Who this episode as well, so keep going.
It's a Star Trek reference. That's the joke.
Yeah. We keep referencing other sci-fi shows.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure anyone knows what the fuck that reference is. If you was listening to this and you was like, oh, I didn't know that was a Star Trek. Come on. And then the last thing of the episode was as Gideon's walking away, he's like, oh, send an encrypted message to Dr. Pershing as we come out of hyperspace. Tell him I've got our asset. Dr. Pershing is, of course...
Got our donor.
Donor, yes, is the doctor from season 1 who we also saw again this season when they... that cartoon
in
episode.
The Siege.
Yeah, the Siege. Yeah. The sort of hologram. So...
They put tiny handcuffs on him.
Yeah, which... At first, my mind goes, that's ridiculous. But then you start thinking about the amount of like small alien species there are.
Yeah, there could be however many alien species.
So it's not really...
I'm sure they've got handcuffs of all different sizes.
It's not as ridiculous as it seems at first, I guess.
Still funny.
It's funny.
Oh, tiny handcuffs.
My one question by the ending, though, is I'm like... So, Mando literally has to get a crew together, go break someone out of prison... And then, after all that, find a way to track down Gideon. Gideon's waiting to come out of hyperspace and then head off to a location. Like, by the time Mando is able to find Gideon, they're going to be very close to...
accomplishing their goals.
Like, you would assume it's going to be like one of those last-second saves again. Like, it's...
Probably.
Yeah, close. It's going to have to be a close shave in the finale of the season, surely.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts for this week's episode?
Yeah. Who did Grogu contact somebody?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I forgot to talk about that.
He was communing for a very long time.
So I kept waiting when I was searching for the rubble, when Mando was searching for a ship rubble. I was expecting maybe someone to just show up then or something, but no one did. So
my assumption is next 2 episodes we save Grogu. End of episode 8. Episode 16, someone shows up at that temple.
You reckon they cut back and someone shows up there looking for him? And it's like the season finale teaser.
The teaser.
Yeah. I was just
like the dark saber bit at the end of the last season.
I didn't
like throw internet into chaos.
Yeah. I think you're probably right.
Oh my god, it's Chewbacca.
Imagine. I was thinking I didn't think they'd show up at the temple because I'd be like, fuck you, like weeks late, dude, but that's fine. I'm gonna hope or assume maybe they just track down Grogu. Like, I mean, like, Force is weird, whatever.
You got to start tracking from somewhere.
Yeah, but like I'm just imagining in my head, maybe now that Grogu's made this connection with whoever the Jedi is, that he's able to maybe then commune or like track him down, possibly. I don't know. Like, again, we're presuming the Jedi that's fighting him is an alive one, and it's not just going to be some stupid fucking Yoda bullshit shows up or.
No, that would not be bullshit. That would be cool.
It would be cool, but I mean,
it's like imagine it's like Force Yoda talking to Grogu in his cell. You know,
that could be what
Grogu keeps looking at him like.
Yeah, that could be exactly what happens, though, something like that. But yeah, I'd expect next week's episode to just be a big focus on the prison break, but. If we don't flash over to see what Gideon's doing, I'm just going to feel a bit weird, considering how tight the time constraints are now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Surely we got to have some Gideon.
I think he gets he gets more of those Dark Troopers by the end of next episode.
What sends?
Yeah, he's going back for Mandalore. That's the goal. Maybe.
See,
he's like, that's going to be my base operations going forward.
Yeah,
no, because the end of this is the end of this season going to be Thorn showing up.
That would be. I still don't know how. I feel.
Who knows?
I don't know how I feel about.
So many questions.
I would assume next week's episode they break out. They did a prison break, and then they head on. Then he gets the location of Gideon, and then once he has the location, at the end of the episode, he heads on over to find Bo-Katan and asks her for help to go face Gideon. So then the finale episode will be a mass amount of Mandalorians fighting Gideon and Dark Troopers, which of course will be orgasmic on screen. Because you'll have
Bo-Katan and Boba Fett ever interacted?
No. Not that I'm aware of. Not gonna think. No, I don't think so. So that would be cool. But that's what I assume the last episode is. It's just gonna be a bunch of Mandalorian armor versus Dark Troopers and Gideon with the Darksaber or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it ends, but I'm assuming that's the general direction that episode's probably gonna go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Mandalorians. Of course, you can find the show at exposurenetwork.com, youtube.com/exposure network, or any podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Search and do what you need to do. Follow all of our Twitters, exposurenetwork.com/Twitter. Find all of the show notes for episode, all that sort of stuff. I don't know. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Let us know what you think is going to happen. I don't know. All that stuff. Until next week, we have spoken.